Right now, I'm standing in front of what's going to be the most recently opened ICE detention center in the country. Before becoming the center of controversy, this warehouse was built for storage and shipping, not for housing people. But soon, our government's going to be installing beds, sinks, toilets, and chain link fences inside to house 1,500 people. It's all happening here in my home state of Maryland in a city called Williamsport, just outside of Hagerstown. Williamsport has a population of just 2,000 people, nearly the same amount of people that are planning to be housed here. And the citizens, they're not happy.
Check this out, people honking their horns. We are in downtown Hagerstown tonight, right in the middle of the city square, and car after car honking. A lot of people supporting the message of the protesters here, who say they do not want a planned ICE facility coming to Hagerstown. Unconstitutional! See you at the ballot box.
We are here in downtown Hagerstown right now, where that protest is kicked off, and we have watched protesters put down those chalk outlines that are meant to highlight every person that has died in ICE custody since 2025. And as you can see there right here, we have talked to some of the protesters who are putting them down, and they've said that dozens of these outlines are in front of the county buildings right now that are on this corner.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Ready to vote? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Clear the room.
All fair. All fair.
So, why did ICE choose to build a facility here? Why is the community fighting back? And did our government break the law by doing this so fast? To get answers to these questions, I decided to sit down for an interview with Patrick Datillio. He's a resident of Hagerstown and has been leading the community efforts to fight back against this detention facility. He started Hagerstown Rapid Response, an organization created to inform residents of the impact a facility like this could bring to the city and to turn neighbors into protesters fighting back against government overreach. But what you gotta understand is, this isn't just happening here. It's happening all across the country in low population areas, often without any input from local residents. So I also want to understand why ICE is expanding so rapidly, why access to these facilities is so restricted even to government officials, why so many detained migrants reports violations related to medical care, nutrition, and living conditions, and whether these places are even legal in the first place. So to also get answers to all those questions, I'm sitting down with Nancy Hiemstra and Deirdre Conlon. They're two professors who have spent years researching migrant detention centers and have even co-authored a book together about the big business of private, for-profit migrant detention centers. So sit down and get comfy, because we're about to peel back all the layers on this bullshit. This is Downtown Dialogue.
So I'm Patrick Datillio. I've lived in Hagerstown my whole life, really. I went away for college. I think that was about it. My family's been here for almost 120 years. My great-grandfather was an immigrant who came to this country for a better life. I started Hagerstown Rapid Response, which was started out as just like a signal group to do some ICE watch.
Right.
But it sort of grew a little bit as the announcement of the warehouse came to be. We now have, I think, like almost 600 people.
That's awesome.
In a signal chat.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is like the wildest family group chat you've ever been in.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's hard to keep track with 600 people there, without a doubt. Tell me, when you first heard that the facility was coming to Hagerstown, how you reacted and how the community reacted.
Yeah, I think the first thing I actually saw was a Reddit post on our like Hagerstown, the tiniest little subreddit you can imagine. But it was like, hey, we are at the top of the list for DHS facilities. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? To be honest, I wish I was more surprised. After seeing things in Minnesota and watching how it all sort of played out there, I had a feeling it was going everywhere.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling it was coming here, and it was it was unfortunately an accurate feeling.
Yeah.
And surprisingly enough, we were right there with a gigantic warehouse in just in between us and Williamsport. The community was pretty excited in a bad way, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because I went from having like 10 people in the signal chat to like 50 to 70 people joining every day.
Wow.
So it ramped up incredibly quickly.
Tell me what you know about the warehouse that they're trying to convert.
It is 825,000 square feet.
Jesus Christ.
It is, the biggest fucking thing I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger building.
No.
They say that they want to have 1,500 detainees, but I don't believe that for a second, that you could fit 15 times that
number in that facility.
It is absolutely huge. Even if you cut it in half and then split it between 1,500 people, you're talking about like 2-3 times the size of your average apartment.
Especially considering how we know that migrants are held in these facilities already.
Like in
chain link
Baltimore.
boxes.
They're in chain link boxes, packed in, no beds.
Yeah.
Like they can say that they're gonna have 1,500 beds, but none of the people in Baltimore had beds. They're laying on cement floors, so like why would we believe them now? I'd say Washington County Indivisible has been protesting for, like they started like a year ago, and they started protesting the county commissioners.
Say the words.
Say the words.
Mr. Ray, you need to leave now.
I'm leaving, but fuck you. How about that?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've only been thrown out 3 times, I think. I think only
awesome.
3 times. Yeah. There was the meeting where they did gave full support for like ICE and DHS and everything they do. It was just like really weird.
DHS, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, plays a critical role in safeguarding our nation's borders and is responsible for enforcing immigration laws, protecting the country from potential threats, and maintaining the rule of law for public safety. Number 1, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland hereby expresses its full support for DHS and ICE, the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and local municipal law enforcement agencies in their efforts to maintain public safety and uphold the rule of law.
Yeah, I heard about
we're
that.
doing that. That was the one where everybody was stood up and was yelling and screaming, and then they like ran out the back door. It was
The commissioners did. Holy shit.
Yeah, they're like, shut the meeting down, and then they like bolted out the back.
Wow.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Ready to vote? All in favor by saying aye. Aye.
Clear the room.
All fair. All fair.
Next question is, why do you think that ICE chose this location?
Maybe it's because Hagerstown is like the intersection of 2 major highways.
And Hagerstown's also West Virginia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you can be in
Virginia. Like you could get to 4 states in only an hour.
in an hour, easily an hour. Like 15 minutes, I can be in Pennsylvania from right here.
Right.
The airport, we're the closest airport to Camp David. So years ago, they extended the runway so it can land a 747. So like Air Force One can actually land at our airport. Right.
Holy hell.
It's been used by the executive branch a bunch.
Right.
And now I've got a feeling they're going to be using it for deportation flights.
What do you think the association between detention centers and low population areas is?
I think it's interesting. I think they thought they could just walk it in here without meeting any resistance.
No
Especially,
pushback.
exactly, no pushback. It's the county commissioners. They're doing something in the county. The county commissioners are all Republicans. There's a majority Republican voter base,
right?
And they thought they could just waltz in and drop a concentration camp in our backyard, and nobody was going to say anything, and they were wrong.
How much progress has ICE made converting the facility? Not even converting, but how much progress have they made, period?
Virtually none. We've been keeping an eye on them the entire time. As soon as we found out, we had people over there filming, taking photos, trying to get as much information as we could about the facility. And as far as we can tell, it's still a big, empty concrete warehouse.
Yeah.
There's nothing inside of it. I think there's still just 4 bathrooms there. They started bringing in, trucking in, toilets, and they've got what looks to be like some containers for potable water. And it looked like they were starting to bring in water, and we think getting ready to actually try to open up.
Yeah, because they have job postings online.
Yeah, they have job postings online. Yeah. They had a fleet of vehicles.
I saw that.
Right.
They moved in. It was like 20 of them parked outside.
Yeah, they ended up, they kept bringing them in. There was up to like 80 at one point.
Oh my God, are you serious?
80 vehicles sitting in the back parking lot of this thing.
Where are they at now? Because I didn't see them.
They moved them recently. There was only a couple left.
Was that after the judge freeze?
That was after the freeze.
They were like, okay, there's no point in letting 80 cars sit here.
Yeah. And which I think confirms they were ready to roll.
Yeah.
They were very much ready to start a surge here, and they got stopped.
Yeah, if you don't mind, tell me about the stop. Like, what do you know about the federal judge's pause?
Yeah.
How legit is this in terms of the grand scheme of things?
It's a good question. It's a win. It's definitely a win in the battle. It's not winning the war. And they stopped trucking things in. We're bringing in new stuff or new cars or more people. And the activity kind of just paused like they're supposed to.
What a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it was a nice win.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to ramping up of an insurgency in our backyard. They hadn't even asked yet for a temporary injunction. I think they were planning on it, but they hadn't gotten it hasn't gotten released yet. And the judge took a look at the facts in the case and just said, "Fuck no! You clearly violated all of these laws. You skipped all of these reviews that you're supposed to be done for environmental reasons." Yep. So they were being sketchy.
Yeah.
Trying to get around historical preservation sort of stuff. All these sort of reviews that take time. So I think the judge made a very good call in stopping things. He gave us till April 15th is the court date in Baltimore.
And what'll happen April 15th?
As far as I know, the judge they'll have DHS will have their day in court.
Okay.
And they'll get to make their case that they should be able to continue work. I guess the Maryland AG is going to continue saying, you violated all these laws. You haven't done any of these things yet.
Do you plan on going to court that day?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm planning on going down. I know there's a bus that's shipping down with a bunch of people.
Okay, cool. Nice.
So, yeah.
Party bus.
Yeah, party bus down to Baltimore. Have a little protest in the morning.
Yeah, watch DHS get their ass kicked.
Yeah, hopefully watch DHS get their ass kicked.
ICE has already been given $113 million to renovate the facility. They already have job postings for the faculty. How are you going to stop it if it still moves forward?
If it's still moving, there's still a bunch of avenues that we're looking at. One is the job postings. They got to hire people to do it. Anybody who wants to apply should definitely do so as many times as they can and slow everything down.
So we can flood the applications. That's fucking crazy.
And then the construction work has to get done. And who's going to be doing that?
Private contractors.
Right. There's a private contractor over in Gettysburg that got the contract, but they're going to subcontract it out.
Right.
And who are they going to subcontract it out? I would assume people around the area, and that's where I think we have a lot more, where we can start applying more pressure.
Okay, they essentially boycott those businesses.
Boycott their houses, boycott the people who own these things that are signing these contracts. You don't get to build and staff a concentration camp without your name going up everywhere.
Power's limited, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But also there is a lot of power in those methods. There's sit-ins at the site, blocking the entrance.
Exactly. We have hundreds of people that are willing to do what needs to be done to slow everything down until it's too much for DHS.
Yeah. Do you feel like the citizens of Williamsport and Hagerstown have been properly involved in this process?
Oh no, no, I don't. They haven't. There hasn't been a public comment.
No survey.
Right.
No town hall meeting.
There's no town halls. They haven't talked to a town of 2,000 people that if they're cool with 1,500 detainees or maybe 2,000 detainees, maybe a lot more moving in. A mile from their elementary school. A block and a half from a church and a daycare center. You can see the warehouse from the playground. I can't imagine anyone, even if you are on the opposite side of
the political spectrum. You don't want this in your backyard.
Yeah. Nobody wants this here. Nobody. They haven't even just checked with us.
Yeah.
Like what we thought. They just tried to shove this down our throats, and we're not having it.
If the facility isn't stopped, besides stopping it, if it happens, how do you think it'll impact the town?
I think it's going to be absolutely detrimental, minimally for Williamsport. One of their main things is tourism. You have the C&O Canal right there. You've got the Potomac River. So people go there to hike and bike and walk and swim and kayak and do all those sorts of things. Nobody wants to go do that next to a concentration camp. Like, that's
kind of ruins the ambiance.
It really blows the nice, like, time out in the mountains.
Yeah.
Right next to the 24/7 lights on barbed wire fence facility.
Yeah.
Our reputation is on the line.
That's what you guys are going to be known for.
We will be known for Hagerstown.
The town with the ice detention center.
Yeah, right.
It's already happening now.
It's already happening. It's already happening. And it's paused, and it's still happening, and that is what people already know us for. But hopefully we can be known for the ones that stopped it.
And be an inspiration.
And that's my goal.
What does this facility represent to you?
I think it's been, how long has it been now? 10 years since Trump got elected?
Yeah.
I think it's
You're right.
It's like
this November would have been 10 years.
Would have been 10 years. Yeah. So I think it's the culmination of everything I have feared for the past 10 years coming together in our backyard.
If you could talk to everyone in the United States, what would you say about what's happening with ICE detention centers?
I wish I could say that, this isn't happening, but it is. It is actually happening. They are building camps to put people in. They are lying about the details, and they are going to get people killed. And I don't care if you think immigrants are taking your jobs. They're not.
Even if they were.
Even if they were, do you think that they belong in tiny cages and to be treated like this? Everything about this is wrong. And it's very hard to understand anyone who doesn't see that now.
And my final question for you is, did I do a better interview than Rachel Maddow?
Ooh, I definitely got a lot deeper here than with Rachel Maddow. That is a good question. That is a good question.
Yeah, well, that was my last one for you.
Awesome.
So,
well,
Patrick, I appreciate you talking to me so much,
absolutely.
brother. Thank you so much.
Oh shit, another car put up next to him.
For real? Can you see him? If I step to the side, can you see him? Is he? All right. Let's see what happens. Put the camera on him real quick. Yeah, they watching us, y'all. They watching us. So as of right now, renovations to this warehouse have been completely paused by a federal judge. Why has that happened? Well, when it comes to the federal government, they actually have a lot of power to build what they want, where they want, and whenever they want. Federal government power usurps local government power. So things like land restrictions, permits, zoning laws, 8-foot tall fences, cut the grass on time, none of that shit matters to the federal government. They can do it whenever they want. But there's one catch, and it's a big one. It's called NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. NEPA requires federal agencies to conduct an environmental impact study before they move forward with any major project. That means looking at things like sewage usage, electricity usage, water runoff, all those kind of things. It applies to any major federal action significantly affecting the quality of the human environment. It doesn't say anything about whether you're building something new or just renovating. So that's where the conflict starts. DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, basically argued that they didn't have to do an environmental impact study because they're going to be renovating an existing building, not constructing a new one. Opponents pushed back hard, arguing that turning a warehouse into a detention center for 1,500 people in a town of just 2,000 residents is absolutely a significant impact. And the federal judge agreed. That's why renovations have been halted at this site. The judge essentially said either comply with NEPA or prove to us that this won't significantly impact the surrounding environment. And well, that's a tough argument to make because adding 1,500 toilets to a small town sewer system is definitely gonna have a major impact. That's a lot of shit. And now, DHS has responded by downplaying the situation. A spokesperson said, "Let's be honest about this. This isn't about the environment. It's about trying to stop President Trump from making America safe again." But there's another layer to all this. Even though this warehouse is gonna have a capacity of 1,500 beds, ICE claims that there will only be 500 people in there at a time. That's the number that they gave local officials when they first got approved for this, and that's the number that they gave for the environmental review they did back in January. So they did an environmental review, but only for 500 people. And there's a problem with that. The issue is, there's no real way to verify that. These places act with a lot of secrecy and the judge just wasn't willing to take their word for it. So for now, the stop work order remains in place. ICE has argued and their attorneys have said that they're gonna scale back operations. They still wanna continue work, but only to put up chain link fences, build offices, put in a cute little break room, all that kind of shit. And after that, well, the plan is still to house migrants at this facility. So it's really not over, it's just pause. The thing is, I'm filming this on April 9th and the judges stopped work orders in place till April 16th. So we really have no clue what's gonna happen. But realistically, I think DHS is gonna conduct a new environmental review, comply with NEPA, and move forward with the project. Realistically, I may be wrong. Sup guys, Editing Tony here. I'm watching the video back and it is now April 19th. The judge has made a decision. I'm gonna show it to you in a couple seconds. I went to the courthouse that day to see the decision get made in real time. I interviewed protesters outside the courthouse before the federal judge made the decision on whether or not he would lift the stop work order from DHS. Now, I was under the impression that the judge wouldn't make a decision or a ruling until the day after we were there, but apparently DHS's argument was so fucking bad that he made a ruling that day, like 10 minutes after the hearing was over. So here's the footage from the day the judge makes a decision on whether or not to stop DHS.
Thank you so much. Can you applaud again for heroes from Washington County who have been leading this struggle every single day, fighting for justice because we know this effort doesn't end when we defeat this racist, unacceptable proposed concentration camp. It will only end when we defeat ICE, when we defeat DHS, and when we end the effort to expand a network of concentration camps across this country. We know the leadership from Washington County and from across the beautiful state of Maryland is a blueprint for the justice and solidarity that has erupted across this county. And we're here to celebrate that today and to demand justice from our courts and from our duty bearers.
And why does this strike as so important to you?
Well, it should strike everyone as important because this administration is lawless. So as much as they try to tell us that this will be a very nice detention center where people will only be held and taken very good care of for a few days, we know from experience in other places that that will not be the case and that people are going to be treated horribly in there, that human rights atrocities will happen, and we are not okay with that in our county.
And do you think this is happening just in this county, or is this a trend across the nation?
Oh no, this is happening everywhere. The Trump administration is trying to build a large network of detention centers, mostly out of warehouses that they've purchased or are in the process of trying to purchase all over the country. Ours just happens to be the one that is the most far along right now, and so we have found ourselves building a little bit of a roadmap for other places in the country to fight their own detention centers. So hopefully we're doing a good job.
I think so. Why is everyone here today?
Oh, because people are furious at what the government is doing, and worse yet, it's right here in Maryland that they're bought this humongous warehouse and they're going to stick people in it. Yeah. It's outrageous. The place is not set up for people. It's horror.
If everyone in America was watching, what would you tell them?
I'd say we got to stop ICE no matter what it costs, and we've got to stop these detentions. We have to stop this horrible crusade against immigrants.
This is not the right thing to do. It is not the humane thing to do. It is unethical. It is destructive of people's humanity. It is humiliating. It is violent. They've had multiple deaths. They have children in there. Children do not belong in a place, no one belongs in a place like that.
I can sympathize with rural areas anywhere in the country that they've been disinvested for a long time, so people are hungry for jobs. I can understand that, but detention facilities no, especially when there's no due process for it. I mean, the whole idea of due process, that he said when he was elected that he was only going to be arrested criminals. We know that that's not true. When they arrested an 83-year-old grandfather whose green card had expired and he went in and just asked what to do about it, it's unconscionable. It's horrendous.
Maybe some people, but most people don't dispute that, serious criminals, major violent criminals, probably ought to be deported. But that's not what's happening. Get with the program, guys. Understand that this is not humane, that history's going to be watching, and you're going to be seen as accomplices.
Remember what living in the United States means, and we need to protect that. And each one needs to step up and do their own way of doing it, but make sure that we can still wave the flag and be kind to people.
So, editing Tony for the last time, basically the judge issued a preliminary injunction against DHS, which essentially means that work is now completely paused until they conduct a new environmental review and come back to the judge with a better case for building the detention center. So technically, this is a battle won in the war for Hagerstown and Washington County against the detention center. This basically means that it won't be happening for months. For months. I mean, we're talking probably past the election. So it'll probably still happen, but man, they stopped that shit. They stopped that shit for now. And if these plans don't move forward, people like Patrick Datillio are worth giving thanks to for showing that you can make a change, for showing that you can take on your government. But if this does move forward, I hope people like Patrick Datillio give this place hell. Boycott the local subcontractors that DHS is going to hire. Protest at the site, do sit-ins, anything. Because the local government didn't get any input from the community on if they wanted this here. There was no questioning. There was no surveys. There was no input from the community. They just did it. They just did it and hoped the little people wouldn't have a problem with it or get in the way. And that's the kind of government behavior I despise. Now let's zoom out from Hagerstown for a minute. This may seem like a big problem to us, but in reality, this is happening all over the country. But it's what's happening inside these facilities that's drawing the most scrutiny. Reports from all across the nation describe detainees struggling to access basic medical care, delays in receiving medication, inadequate nutrition, and in some cases, conditions that advocates and attorneys say are unsafe. And the numbers are raising even more concern.
We want justice not just for my dad, but for everyone else who is going through this.
In 2025 alone, 32 people died in ICE custody, the highest number in 2 decades. Now in 2026, the numbers are going at a pace that could probably surpass that. In just the first few months of this year, more than 24 people have died in detention, with some cases involving alleged medical neglect, delayed emergency response, or unclear circumstances. We're talking about people in federal custody. And I know what some of you may be thinking. Well, they got themselves in that situation by illegally crossing our borders. One, some of these detainees aren't border hoppers. They're people whose visas expired, people who applied for asylum the legal way and are waiting on their court dates, green card holders who got caught up in old criminal charges, or people who showed up at the border and turned themselves in, exactly how our system tells them to. And lack of your empathy aside, the same amendments that protect you when you're detained are the exact same amendments that are protecting them when they're detained. That's because it doesn't say citizens in the Fifth Amendment, it says persons. And that matters, because once you're okay with one group of people's constitutional rights being denied, you're setting a precedent that none of them matter at all. And for critics, these facilities raise a deeper question, not just about conditions, but about the system itself. Because illegally crossing our border is not a criminal offense. It's actually a civil violation, no different than a traffic violation. Which leads us to a fundamental question. How does our government justify holding people in places that look and operate like prisons for something that isn't actually a criminal charge? Supporters of facilities like this argue that it actually helps the government. It ensures that people show up for their court dates and helps the immigration system stay on track. But critics say that that doesn't justify the lack of oversight, the deaths, and the conditions. And that's where this story moves beyond Hagerstown. So to understand how migrant detention centers actually work and how it's affecting the people in the surrounding area and more the people inside them, I spoke with two experts who have spent years studying immigration detention and its impact. Nancy Hiemstra, a professor at Stony Brook University, and Deirdre Conlon, a professor at the University of Leeds, have spent over a decade researching immigration enforcement and detention systems across the United States and beyond. Together, they co-authored the book Immigration Detention Incorporated, which examines how detention has expanded, how it shaped communities and the lives of the people inside these facilities, while also exposing the big business profiting off migrant detention. Now it's time to talk to the experts.
So I am Nancy Hiemstra. I am an associate professor in the Department of Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies at Stony Brook University in Long Island, New York. I have my PhD in political geography, which, I completed in 2011. But I've been doing research on detention really since 2007.
My name is Deirdre Conlon. I am a critical political and feminist geographer. I completed my PhD at the City University of New York. Since completing my PhD, I'm currently based in the UK in a place called Leeds. Prior to being at Leeds, I was based at a small college university in Jersey City in New Jersey, and it is from there that the project and work that I've been doing in collaboration with Nancy came about, looking at immigration detention.
For people who may not be familiar, Nancy, what is an ICE detention facility and how does it function?
So an ICE detention facility is a facility that is holding detained migrants. The idea and on paper behind a detention facility is that it is not supposed to be punitive. It's not supposed to be like a jail. It is supposed to serve an administrative function to hold people while their case is being processed or they're awaiting deportation or whatever. Now, as we see in the media, they totally are like jails. And people held in them are held often in conditions that are equal to or worse than our jails in jails and prisons in the United States. But there are over 200 facilities all over the United States. There are some that are owned by ICE, right? There are some that are owned by private companies, and then there are others that are owned by states or counties, like often county jails that have space that then rent out the so-called bed space to ICE to kind of fill county budgets, county coffers. So,
actually, I wasn't aware of that.
It's also important to recognize that one of the things that we flag, and that most people who have a kind of growing concern about immigration detention, is this question of sort of private actors and private entities like Geo Group or CoreCivic, who are the key providers of immigration detention facilities, or key managers of immigration detention facilities around the country. As Nancy has mentioned, there are myriad other entities, companies, providers involved in the provision of everything from food, medical care, transportation, communications. And so there's kind of a universe of actors and entities and companies that are involved in immigration detention. What's also important to note about this space is that the local governments, the state governments that are contracting with the federal government, are also making money or generating revenue through the contracting process. So while it is private sector actors who have contracts, it is also local governments and municipalities that are generating revenue, are increasingly dependent on the revenue that comes from immigration detention. So it isn't just a kind of a straightforward private sector is bad. It's a whole web of dependency, as we describe in our work and in our book, that is created on the basis of these contracts that detention centers and detention facilities operate with and through.
Well, and what I'll say too is with this new model, the proposal of this warehouse model of detention, this is really a significant shift in the way that the U.S. Has been doing detention, right? They are actually like the KVJ company that just got this huge contract for it is a military contractor. It is not experienced or knowledgeable in how detention operates, in the standards of detention. I mean, they are used for like emergency mission support in military operations, at least from what we understand so far.
And I think that'll kind of tie into the next question I have for you is, from Biden to Trump, what is changing about ICE detention facilities?
Well, I mean, one thing that we do talk about in our work is that detention is not just a Republican thing. The detention system has been growing, really started growing quickly in the 1990s, right? Across administrations, there's been a big bump in every administration, a huge bump during the Obama administration. However, there are some notable, and there have been many problems in detention for years in terms of abusive conditions, deaths in detention, just lots of problems. What we are seeing now is just an explosion in all the problems in detention, right? The number of deaths in detention is multiplying just at super alarming rates, right? And that comes from, with this huge growth of detention facilities, this supersizing at a rapid rate, conditions are deteriorating. And at the same time, the second Trump administration is defunding or ending like all of the kind of accountability mechanisms in place, like inspections, making sure that there are standards in place, ICE access, like they're not allowing officials in to see what's going on. So they're essentially creating these like closed black boxes. Yeah, in which anything can happen.
What we haven't seen, as we've been saying, is the scale and also the kind of hiding. There was some semblance of transparency with the previous administrations that has simply been kind of shuttered with the current administration. And that is deeply problematic as the mechanisms for accountability were and have been under previous administrations. It used to be the case that there were kind of safe, ICE-free spaces, hospitals and schools and courthouses were not fair game for ICE to enact their operations, but those are now part and parcel of their enforcement operations.
One of the things that we do in the book is we trace how immigration detention has grown across administrations, across politicians. Throughout all of that, companies benefiting from detention have given a lot of money to politicians, to lobbying, to put in place the laws that pull more people into detention, that criminalize asylum seeking,
right.
That pull, say, okay, now we're going to detain families and children, right? We're gonna, there's these laws that have made detention mandatory for more and more people. And the people pushing those laws are precisely those companies making money from detention. So that influence has been consistent across administrations. Now, those companies are ecstatic right now. I mean, in their February shareholder reports for a number of those companies, you can look them up online. I mean, there are just these kind of like super celebratory statements of how much money they're making now under the second Trump administration, and with the plans for even more expansion. There is a lot of joy going on in those companies.
The press aren't allowed to tour ICE facilities, and senators have been denied access to them despite legally having the right to do so. Why do you think this is?
Because ICE doesn't want people to see what's going on inside. I think the violations to existing standards, just to general human rights, are so blatant. I mean, I think you walk into a lot of facilities, you know, if you look at the food, people are not being fed sufficiently. They're being fed rotten food. I mean, there have been a lot of issues with people just not getting food in detention, not getting water. I mean, these are things that it's difficult to hide, right? On an unannounced inspection. There's been a long history before now of inspections being pre-announced so that the facility knows and they can serve like a good meal to people when the inspectors are there. But I think it's pretty obvious to see that they are in violation of just basic standards of hygiene, of having enough toilets and showers for people, of having, you know, clean facilities. The medical care is hugely problematic. I mean, it has been for a long time, but now you know, they don't have, in some of these new facilities, there is no way that they have what they should have in terms of available staff or resources, right? And, you know, so they do not want people coming in and talking to detainees who can, like, I would say that a lot of detainees have pretty horrifying stories of what is going on in a lot of these facilities. So, I mean, plain and simple, they don't want the public to know what's going on because they know that even the general public has a limit to what they will tolerate in terms of treatment of human beings.
It is also worth noting that for you know, for people who might have a monitoring role or a research role, like Nancy and myself, it's always been difficult to get into immigration detention facilities. So, you know, for instance, in our own research, we were kind of almost at the threshold of, you know, kind of getting access to some of the facilities that we study in New Jersey in particular, but the kind of permissions were withdrawn at the very last minute, and that's going back to 2012. So it is important to note that access to detention facilities has always been a kind of a challenge, particularly for those who might scrutinize, right? What many people for many years have relied on is visitor groups, whether that is members of people's family or independent visitors going to and kind of befriending people who are held in immigration detention facilities. And what we're seeing, in addition to like the press and politicians who have a right to tour those facilities, is that it is becoming increasingly difficult even for family members to visit their loved ones who are detained. And what I mean by that is that entities that are running detention facilities will change the visiting hours or change the visiting days with zero notice, or keep people waiting for long periods of time outside of facilities. So it's a crackdown on any access or any visibility, no matter what your relationship is to that facility or to people who are held in that facility. And that's deeply problematic.
In just the first year of the Trump administration, there have been 35 to 45 deaths. Is this only because the number of detainees has dramatically increased? What do you believe the reason for an increase like this is?
Well, okay, so sure, it does have to do with more people being detained, but it also just has to do with the conditions of detention and the lack of really concern or care on behalf of ICE, as well as the companies that are being hired to run things. And part of it is if you have a facility that is understaffed, there is definitely a limit to, you know, the attention that you can give to people. But all of the kind of pre-existing problems of ignoring requests for medical care or sending people with, you know, severe abdominal pain back to their cells saying, drink more water, or here's an ibuprofen, right? You know, there have been a lot of problems with somebody who has an emergency condition or otherwise needs like treatment outside at a hospital. Like they cannot get approval from ICE to treat that, to leave the facility. So you have people dying of preventable conditions like hypertension or, you know, just things like that because they become so bad because they just can't get them treated. So that has long been an existing problem. But now with this aggressive expansion of facilities, I think the systems inside detention centers are just collapsing. And I think a lot of times too, you're hiring not always, but people are being hired that they come to these jobs with the attitude already that these are illegals, they're lying, they don't deserve care, right? So there's also not everybody, right? But there's also an additional attitude that I think is being allowed and even fostered in a lot of these detention facilities. When we're looking at places like thinking about the Hagerstown warehouse, if you look at plans for how they're going to set these up, it is impossible to conceive how they would be able to provide care for such a large number of migrants with the facilities indicated in those plans, right? I mean, it's just like, it just looks like it will be a death trap. If somebody is sick, they will not be able to get the care that they need.
Let's take, for instance, the food in immigration detention going way back, right? What we found in our research is that contracts are awarded based on bad food being the business model in immigration detention. So in some of the facilities that we have studied, for instance, the average cost of a meal per detainee is about $1.46. Now, nowhere or almost nowhere is that a viable cost for a nutritionally adequate meal.
And Deirdre, right? $1.46 a meal?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What migrants end up doing is turning to the commissary. Now, often the commissary company is owned by the same parent company that provides food services, or at least in some cases that is true. So we see that this cycle of exploitation is working in immigration facilities that allows contractors to pull more and more money from immigration detainees and from the poor conditions that immigration detainees are subjected to. The same goes when it comes to medical care, where cost cutting is the logic that drives medical care, or the kind of limited medical care that's provided in immigration detention. The time frames and the kind of training that people who are working directly with migrants has been cut. So we're seeing corners being cut left, right, and center across the system.
Crossing the border is typically considered a civil offense, comparable to a traffic violation. So how does the system justify, or how does our federal government justify, detaining people in facilities that resemble prisons?
I mean, I think if you just listen to any government official speak about detention, if you hear media reports, it is the constant reinforcement that immigrants are criminals.
These aren't people. These are animals.
They are here to do harm. They're here to take advantage of the U.S. and, it's very contradictory. Like, they're here to just come and get a free ride in the U.S., but also they're stealing our jobs. Right.
Yeah.
Contradiction there.
I've heard people describe it as Schrodinger's immigrant.
Right, exactly.
Taking out killers, rapists, drug dealers, people from mental institutions that came in.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, escape the asylums, rapists.
Yeah,
that's all they're here for,
paint
right?
them as horrible people meant to do the U.S. harm, right? They do all this kind of, they use all this rhetoric to hide the fact that, the detention system is like turning people who come here to work, for safety, to try to contribute, into ways to make money off of detaining them, right? It's a trick of how we talk about immigrants. It's selective imaging of here, if you show people behind bars already, the American public is going to assume that they did something wrong, instead of really looking into why they're being detained.
What drew me to immigration research in the first place, with this question about birthright citizenship, one of the things that I think is also important to point out about the current moment is that once all these supposedly, but not really, problematic populations have been drawn into and pulled into systems of control, of kind of detention and enforcement, what the current administration is doing is basically making space for Other groups, other populations, those who have birthright citizenship in the United States, those who are naturalized citizens, to become fodder for this machine that just needs to be fed continuously in order for profit to be generated.
You're absolutely right. I mean, what happens when you told everyone your entire campaign that we have 20 million illegal migrants here? That number was nowhere close to true. So now everyone who we deemed as a criminal, we're just going to kind of open up the box on who we deem as criminal so we can start to pump those numbers up and really make it look like the number was 20 million.
If you construct more and more permanent detention facilities and you run through those initial populations, well, then who are you going to put in these detention facilities? So, you know, we used to think it was dystopian to talk about, but, you know, what we've seen lately means it is no longer dystopian.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I came out to a lot of professors. I tried to contact many, but you all responded, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks for such great questions. It's been nice talking with you.
I know, it was enjoyable. You had wonderful questions. Really great.
Well, thank you guys so much. I hope your meeting goes well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'll be in touch. Man, oh man, I appreciate you watching to the end of the video. If you're still watching, I appreciate it because this stuff matters. If migrants' rights are violated, that means that your rights could be violated too. And one more time, for good time's sake, our Constitution says, and I quote, "No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." Notice that it says person, not citizen. In the eyes of the law, your rights are no different than the rights of the people who are supposed to be housed here. So the next time you're rooting for deportations without court trials or hearings, check yourself, because it means that they can do it to you too. Quick shout out to Patrick Datillio and Hagerstown Rapid Response. I really appreciate him taking the time out his day to sit down with me. If you'd like to support him somehow, there is a Signal group chat that you can join that is Hagerstown Rapid Response, and you can help the protest efforts to fight against this facility. If you also like to help him and you live in Washington County, he will be running for Democratic Central Committee this June, and I'm sure that he'd appreciate your vote. And also, I'd like to give a big shout out to Professor Hiemstra and Professor Conlon. The fact that two professionals like that also spent time to sit down and talk with me is amazing, and I'm very grateful. Thank you if you're watching. I emailed many professors for interviews for this video, and they were a part of a very, very small group that responded to me. So if you'd like to support them, you can go on Amazon and buy their book, Immigration Detention Incorporated. It's for sale right now, and I highly recommend that you go check it out. Link for the book is in the description. But regardless, my name's Tony. That's a bullshit fuck-ass ICE detention center, and you've been watching Downtown Dialogue. I'll see y'all in the next one.
We don't want no camps.
We don't want no camps.
You can stop this.